Hi, I'm Sharmila with Keller Williams Realty here in Austin. Welcome to my next episode of Champagne with Sharmila. In today's episode, we have a special guest, Mr. Goran Gorichka. Everybody is receiving, those of you who are living in Austin, receiving the appraisal board's notice with the appraised value of your home. And this is what you're taxed on, and you have the right to protest the value of your home and lower your taxes. So Mr. Goran Gorichka is going to talk about how to go about this whole process. And just to tell you a little bit about Gordon, he has been practicing real estate broker for the last 45 years. So he has all the experience in the world. And in 1993, he was appointed to the appraisal review board. He was one of the few with the actual real estate experience who was, on the board. And about 3 years later, he and a couple of other people decided to write a book to help the public. And they wrote a book on how to fight your Texas tax appraisal and win. And again, the idea was to create a level playing field. So without further ado, I'm going to have Gordon talk about why you should protest your property tax, how to do it. Then we're going to go over a couple of quick questions that people have asked me, and Gordon will respond. And then we'll wrap it up with summarizing a few key points that you must remember before going to protest your property tax. And if this information is not enough, you can come to a long 2 or 3 hour class that Gordon is going to be teaching before the May 15th deadline. I can give you the exact schedule if you send me an email or call me or put your comments right here. So Gordon, can you tell us why you should protest your property tax?
Well, number one, I think one ought to do that every year just to potentially correct any misinformation that the appraisal district has. The other reason is you always want, in my opinion, you want to fight value. Because if we're successful in fighting value, we ultimately can reduce our tax burden. So I think we owe it to ourselves in that light.
Gordon, tell us how to go about this whole process, because I know there's a systematic way of protesting your property tax every year, and that's where a lot of people get confused. There is market value, there is assessed value. What are you really trying to do, and what is the ultimate? The ultimate goal is to reduce your property tax, but there's a lot of confusion around the market value and the assessed value.
Okay, well, let's go back a little bit further. Once you receive your notice, what you need to do is either, depending on the depth and breadth of your notice, at some part in that notice there's the protest portion. And after you receive the notice, you don't know how you're going to protest based on either market value or are you being treated fairly with regards to your other neighbors. So on the reverse side, typically on the reverse side or a separate sheet of paper, you'll see the actual protest form. That must be turned in writing, and you must turn it in before the deadline. For Travis and Hayes County, that deadline is May 15th. Williamson County have already sent out their notices. They may still be holding to May 15th, but the property tax code says May 15th or 30 days after they mailed the notice, whichever is later. So I'm betting Williamson County is also May 15th. But in any event, you have that protest form. You've got to complete it. You've got to send it in. And what you're doing, when you protest is you'll be arguing and attempting to reduce the market value that the appraisal district has assessed the property for. And again, to do that, it's through a written protest.
Right. So just to summarize, basically, it's the market value that you are aiming to reduce, and the assessed value and market value can either be the same, or ideally when the market value goes below the assessed value needs to be automatically adjusted to bring it down. Is that correct?
Correct. You pay, as we've talked about again a little briefly, you pay taxes on the assessed value. You're valued on what the appraisal district thinks your property would sell for. You pay taxes on what they've assessed you for. And again, you're trying to argue a lower market value that in turn will lower your assessed value, so you pay less in taxes.
Right. And so to protest the market value, basically you need to put together some comps and make a case that, hey, my market value is truly less than what the county thinks it is. Right?
Correct.
Thank you, Gordon. That was really helpful. So now what we're going to do is address two different questions, one from Travis County and one from Williamson County. The first gentleman who asked me is his market value is at 581. His assessed value is at 535. Now, last year, his assessed value was, both assessed and market value were at 486. So now from 486 to 581, the county is saying that we think your property is gone up by almost 20%. How do we, protest this?
Okay. Well, as you may know, the market is the market, and it's the appraisal district's opinion based on information that they've gathered in the tax neighborhood on where this person's value is gone. And so they send out the appraisal notice. And so if you're going to fight it, you're going to have to bring them information that says that that's too high. Whether it's information based on sales in that tax neighborhood, or it's information based on an equity argument being treated fairly with regards to the neighbors. But in any event, this person needs to make a protest, and his goal in this case will be to attempt to successfully argue a value less than 435, I believe.
No, 535.
Or 535,
Yeah,
I apologize, 535.
So bring it down from 581 below 535.
Correct.
So that the assessed value has to be adjusted to the market value, and that's how we will save money on property tax.
That's correct. So that's his goal. His goal should be below 535 or better. If it's better than 535, he's actually going to save tax dollars. But they lawfully, based on sales in the neighborhood, could increase his assessed value from the previous year, which I believe was 485. They could increase it because it's a homestead. They were capped at 10%, and that 10% was taking the value from 485 to 535.
Right, yeah. So, all right, that sounds good. And then, similar situation for this person in Williamson County. I think you covered the points, which applies to whether you're, whichever county you are in. Gordon, can you summarize and tell us what are some of the most important things to remember when you go to protest your property tax?
Okay, first things first, when you get your notice, don't immediately protest. You're what I would call fresh meat. And for Disney World, you want to be first in line. For the tax appraisal process, the argument process, you want to be last in line if you can be. So the first thing you want to do is turn in that written protest as close to the deadline as possible. I'm suggesting May 13th, 14th, 15th. Get it in the mail, get the post office to hand cancel that envelope. You don't have to use any sort of special delivery. You could hand carry it. I would not recommend that. Just get it in the mail. Don't be late, because if you're late, it's harder to protest. Number two, on that protest form, you're going to protest both sales and equity. You don't know your best argument today, but so you want to keep your options open by protesting both. Third, you want to request the evidence packet from the appraisal district and that'll be the evidence on both sales and equity. You want that information because that's how you're going to develop your argument. You may know information that the appraisal district doesn't, and you can use that to really help you. So then you've mailed your protest on time, and at some point in time, the appraisal district is going to send you a letter with 2 dates. One is the date for the informal meeting, and the second one that will follow typically a week later, that's your formal hearing. 2 weeks prior, this is maybe the most important thing, 2 weeks prior to your informal meeting, you're going to make an open records request of the appraisal district for information and all the hearings all the formal hearings they've had and all the informal meetings that they've had in your tax neighborhood, because you want to know the results. When you get the results, you can see the decisions that they're making, and that may give you ammunition to more successfully argue your value, because you've learned the concessions that they've made for you.
Perfect. I think that was really helpful information. Thank you, Gordon. I'm really honored that Gordon took the time to come and talk to us. I hope you found this information useful. And once again, if you want to attend Gordon's class, it's a 4-hour class, very detailed. And if you want to attend, let me know. I will give you the exact schedule. And those classes are going to be in May, before May 15th. So you will have enough time to get prepared for your protest. Thank you so much. And until next time, I'm Sharmila. Stay tuned.